to the relative world. Neutrality.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Neutrality. According to the dictionary, the definition of neutrality is absence of decided views, expression, or strong belief. This is the most important quality. One may have equal vision, but that may not mean that they are undisturbed by the dualities of this material world. One has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities such as happiness and distress, or cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities, becomes free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. In Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 15th verse, it is also said that, O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. So when one remains neutral...
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What's the difference between equality and neutrality then?
So neutrality means not getting affected by anything.
Right.
And equality means seeing everything as the same. Seeing everybody in their constitutional position.
Well, seeing that everyone has internal relationship with Krishna, right? And neutrality is not being disturbed by the dualities of life.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Very good.
One of the greatest examples of a person who exhibited neutrality was none other than Bharat Maharaj. At one point, Bharat Maharaj was the king of the entire planet and was the most exalted devotee. However, when Bharat Maharaj gave up his kingdom to his sons and left to the forest to meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he came upon a motherless deer and he grew compassionate towards it, taking care of it and always worrying about whether it was safe, instead of meditating on the Lord. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 8th chapter, 21st verse, says, Alas, the small deer, while playing with me and seeing me feigning meditation with
What does
closed
that mean,
eyes,
feigning?
like faking or pretending as if
Yes.
he was doing, with closed eyes,
In other words, he was not really meditating.
yeah, would circumambulate me due to anger arising from love, and it would fearfully touch me with the points of its soft horns, which felt like drops of water. This verse is important because it shows how, due to his unnecessary compassion on the young deer, Bharat Maharaj grew slack in his devotional service and hence became a fallen person, to the point where he was simply pretending as if he was meditating.
So, did he engage in any sinful activity, Bharat Maharaj?
No.
No. So what was his fault?
He was attached to the deer
And he became slack
in his
in
devotional
his
service.
devotional service. See, that's the whole point. That's why people fall down, because they begin to become negligent in their service, not doing it carefully and paying attention to the details. They gradually, it's what's called a slippery slope. Write this down. Slippery slope. S-L-I-P-P-E-R-Y. Slippery slope. S-L-O-P-E. Just like instead of feigning meditation, one could be feigning chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's not being serious about it, right? Not saying the words carefully, not pronouncing them properly, and being inattentive while chanting. And so then you get on a slippery slope. What does that mean? A slippery slope avidya. If you don't know, just say, I don't know. Okay. Anybody? It's okay that you don't know. You're going to learn. Yes. What's a slope? Yeah, it's like an incline, right? And if it's slippery, it's because, let's say, it's icy, right? So if you're walking down a sharp incline, let's say pathway or road, right? And it's very icy, what happens? What can happen? You can slip and fall, right? So if you're inattentive while chanting, or inattentive to doing devotional service, or inattentive while listening to the class, you can be on, it's like being on a slippery slope. You know, you're walking like this, and if you're not paying attention, you slip and you can fall down and hurt yourself. You see, that's because of being inattentive. Write that down. Inattentive. I-N-A-T-T-E-N. I-N-A-T-T-E-N. T-I-V-E. Inattentive. I think that's right. So, who wants to be on a slippery slope? Monica, you want to be on a slippery slope? No. So they have to pay attention, right? Arush, you want to be on a slippery slope? Move over a little. I can't see you clearly. You're being hidden behind Advita. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Maharaj Bharata grew slack. What does that mean, grew slack? S-L-A-C-K. What's it when you our walking dictionary here? What's it mean? Lazy, not paying attention.
Not caring.
Slacking. All right. Okay, go ahead.
When Bharat Maharaj died, he became a deer in his next life. However, due to his elevatedness throughout most of his life, he was given the mercy to be able to remember his past deeds. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 8th chapter, 28th to 29th verse. Although in the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj, due to his rigid devotional service in his past life, could understand the cause of his birth in that body.
What does it mean, rigid devotional service? Arush, what is that? Rigid devotional service. Rigid devotional service. Rigid. It's just the sound of the word rigid. Okay, so it means strict. When someone is rigid, performing rigid devotional service, it means they're strictly following. Okay? R-I-G-I-D. Okay? Rigid. All right, go ahead.
Bharat Maharaj, due to his rigid devotional service in his past life, could understand the cause of his birth in that body. Considering his past and present life, he constantly repented his activities, speaking in the following way.
Okay, now 1 second. It's a very important point here. Maharaj Bharata, due to his rigid devotional service in his past life, could understand the cause of his birth in that body. So this is very important. When you learn to rigidly follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, you're able to understand very quickly when you make a mistake. If you slack in following Krishna consciousness, you also will not be able to clearly understand when you make a mistake. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you, Ria? If you rigidly follow, very strictly follow Krishna consciousness, when you make a mistake, you can understand quickly if you made a mistake and try and correct it. But if you're slack or inattentive or negligent, let's write these words down. Inattentive, you have it, right?
Yeah.
Negligent, N-E-G-L-I-G-E-N-T. Negligent. That means not paying attention. Like when you're chanting your rounds, being inattentive or slack, or pretending to chant, but not really meditating on the holy name. So there's inattentive, negligent, slack. Okay, 3 words that approximately mean the same thing. You're not really paying attention, not really being serious about following, and just being inattentive, negligent, slack, being
Feigning.
feigning means pretending. Yeah, you can put it's not the same meaning though. That's pretending. Being I'll think of the word. There's another word. Now, these are all called synonyms. What's a synonym, Augustine? Yes. No, somebody else named Augustine. Synonym, write that down. Synonym, I think. Double check that spelling. Yes. Yes, did you say or did you say om? Yeah.
Synonym means that, like,
It's the same meaning.
Yeah.
2 words that mean the same thing. Did you learn that at school? Okay, go ahead, finish. So if you follow rigidly or strictly, you'll be able to realize quickly when you make a mistake. And if you're negligent or slack or inattentive, not seriously following, then you might not realize you're making a mistake. Just like this always happens when people are chanting, right? Let's say they're a little tired, so you go, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare. And then someone goes like that. Oh, I was chanting. What do you mean? You sort of get upset that someone wakes you up, right? So because they're slack, they don't want to admit that they weren't chanting. So they say, "Well, I was just meditating on the holy name," but actually they were sleeping. Right? So you want to be attentive always. Go ahead.
Hence, understanding his mistake, Bharat Maharaj stayed around the ashrams of sages and passed his life as a deer and became the son of a brahmana.
In other words, what was his mistake? He overestimated himself. He had a, let's say, inflated idea of who he was. That means that he thought that he was so advanced that he couldn't fall down. When you think like that, then you're ready to fall down. You see. And because he was alone, doing his service alone in the forest, he thought, oh, that's impossible, I can't deviate, I'm going to attain perfection in this lifetime. And he got attached to a little deer, and he became inattentive, and he fell down. He became slack in his devotional service, you see. So he had an inflated idea about his level of advancement. How do you spell inflated, Augustine? Yes, so write it down. Inflated idea of his level of advancement. Inflated idea of his level of advancement. I-N-F-L-A-T-E-D, inflated idea, I-D-E-A. Inflated idea of his level of advancement. Today's an English lesson. If you have an inflated idea of your level of advancement, what does that mean, Krishna? If you have an inflated idea of the level of advancement. A what? Yeah, you overestimate yourself, right? So that was one problem of Bharad Maharaj. He thought he could not fall down. So that's what happens when you try and chant and do service without the association of other devotees. Let's say you're chanting like this: Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare. Can you wake yourself up? Usually not, right? But then someone else goes, Prabhu, you're going, no, I wasn't sleeping, I was just meditating. No, I was sleeping, right? So, that's why it's important to do devotional service in the association of devotees, right? Why? Why should you do association? Why should you do devotional service in the association of devotees? What is your name? What? Shamuk. Shanmuk. S-A-N. S-H. Shanmuk. And what's your brother's name? What? C-H. Cha. Like cha-cha? Cha-cha-cha? Is that your name? Cha? Is that short for something? Charan, yeah, don't say cha, it's like cha-cha-cha. Charan is a nice spiritual name, but cha is, doesn't mean anything. Okay, go ahead.
His name was Jadavarat, and he was born mute. Because
what does that mean, mute?
That means he couldn't talk, or he wasn't talking.
Yeah, when you're mute, another synonym of mute is dumb. It doesn't mean you're not intelligent, it just means you don't talk. Yeah.
Because he was mute, he was mistreated by his brothers, and when their father died, they took advantage of Jadavarat's weakness and made him do menial chores and fed him leftovers like he was a servant.
Was he actually like mute?
No, it's in Srimad Bhagavatam it says that even though he appeared to be mute and even though he didn't follow his father's instructions, he was actually very aware in himself.
No, he was fully aware. Why did he stay mute? Voluntarily. Why did he stay mute?
Because he didn't want to fall down again.
He didn't want to compromise himself with the material nature. In other words, if you stay mute, everyone thinks you're stupid and you're not really educated, and they really leave you alone, or they do like his brothers, they abuse, But did he ever complain? Is that an example of something that we learned yesterday for our homework last week? This week's homework?
Yeah, remaining neutral.
Yeah, neutral. You remained neutral. You didn't complain. He considered that if he would complain, then that'd be showing intelligence. And he didn't want people to give him any special treatment. Why? Because previously he had overestimated himself. So now he's becoming super humble. And this is explained, by the way, this is your next week's homework. 12th chapter, verse 12 and 13. In the purport, I'm not going to read the whole thing now. It says, so it is better to suffer than to protest. Write this down. It is better to suffer than protest. It is better to suffer. Let's say you're, how old are you? Let's say you're 8 years old, like Aditya, and someone does something. Either they say something that hurts you, or they physically hurt you, or they do something to you that's not right. Don't say, oh, Harivilas said, it's better to suffer than to protest. I'm not going to tell anyone this happened to me. That's a mistake. You have a right to immediately tell your parents or anybody, any responsible person, so-and-so did this to me, and you should report it right away. But when you get older and very advanced in Krishna consciousness, then because you completely depend on Krishna and you consciously make a decision that, look, my goal in life is to go back to God, and it's not to get into constant fights, then you might be able to follow this. So, but I just want you to be aware, this is a very, and Prabhupada explains in the purport, it's an advanced state of Krishna consciousness. But when, at Vidya's age or young age, or let's say you're still a minor up to 18 years old, if someone does something to you that's not right, you should immediately tell authorities, whether it's in school, whether it's your parents, or whether it's the temple. You should not tolerate being abused in any way. Abuse can be verbally abused or physically abused, okay? But later on in life, if you become very advanced in Krishna consciousness, they have to understand that this is a symptom of a pure devotee like Harivilas Maharaj. That's why we're studying his example. Okay? So don't get a wrong idea. If someone does something bad to you, and you say, oh, Harivilas said it's better to suffer than to protest, I'm not going to say anything. That would be really the wrong understanding of this. But your homework is to read this verse and read the purport and explain what is meant here. Right? It's better to suffer than to protest. Okay, so finish your reading, and then we're going to go on to a very controversial subject. Go ahead.
Okay. So, because he was mute, he was mistreated by his brothers, and when their father died...
Oh, wait a minute. What does mute mean, Madhu? M-U-T-E. I thought you said, did you say om or did you say Huh? Oh, okay. What does mute mean? Okay, that's all right. So you're going to listen to what it means and not forget it next time? I'll ask you again, right? Who wants to say what mute means? Yes. Arush.
I can't talk.
Yes. You got it? I'm going to ask you again, but a little later on. So pay attention. You have to answer. Okay, go ahead.
He was mistreated by his brothers, and when their father died, they took advantage of Jadabharat's weakness and made him do menial chores and fed him leftovers like he was a servant.
Was Jadabharat weak? What do you think, Sanmukh? Was he weak? No, he was not weak. He was feigning weakness. What does that mean, feigning weakness?
Pretending.
Huh? Yeah, he's very strong. He's pure devotees, right? But they took his brothers misinterpreted his seeming weakness to mean that he was stupid and didn't know any better. Just like sometimes, you're going to write this down, some people take kindness for weakness. Write that down. Some people take kindness for weakness. You know what that means? Anyone want to say what that means? Taking kindness for weakness. Okay, yes. They say that again into the microphone. So
Some people think that if you're being kind, you're weak.
weak in what sense?
Like
Physically weak?
No, from your heart. Like emotionally weak or
Right. Well, is taking kindness for weakness correct?
no.
No, you can be very strong psychologically and physically, but be a kind person. It's not because you're weak, it's because you have good manners and behavior, and you've been properly taught by your parents and temple to be a kind person. It doesn't mean you're a weak person. Right? So in the same way, Jad Bharat's brothers took his, what does it say here? Took advantage of Jad Bharat's weakness. They thought that the fact that he never spoke, there was some weakness that he had. They didn't understand Jad Bharat. Go ahead. Sorry to keep interrupting you.
One night, when he was kept to guard the livestock, a group of dacoits, who were fanatic worshippers of Kali, took him as a part of a human sacrifice.
Took him as an offering of human sacrifice.
So,
Changed part to offering.
yeah. So,
Anybody know what a dacoit is? Yes? No, a dacoit means like a criminal, right? A very bad person.
yeah.
Not afraid to commit sinful activities. Go ahead.
Jadabharat remained neutral to what was going on and didn't even cry out when the dacoits were preparing to kill him. However, even before they could lift the axe, Kali Mata came from the deity and killed all the dacoits. The point is to understand that those who are neutral do not have any attachment to the material world. They have no decided views or biases to anybody or anything.
Biases, not vices.
Biases to anybody or anything. We must not, however, try to imitate such people.
Yes.
Their position is too elevated and exalted for us to even understand. Other great examples of devotees who remained neutral in terrible times were Jesus Christ and Harivilas Maharaj. And then the second question was the difference between fate and destiny. Fate. Fate is the development of events beyond a person's control, regarded as determined by a supernatural power, or God. Destiny. The events that will necessarily happen to a particular person or thing in the future. Fate is decided, but destiny is based on the actions which people perform which add up to their future. Destiny can be changed through the limited free will which living entities have to make decisions. Fate, however, is fixed because it is decided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is important to understand that not all living entities have the privilege of being able to alter their destiny. Only in the human form do the living entities have such intelligence that they are able to alter their destiny by asking self-existent questions.
With self what?
Self-existent questions.
What does that mean?
That means like asking questions about the self and like understanding your relationship.
Self-existing? Is that it?
What?
Did you just say self-existing
No,
question?
self-existent. Yeah.
Self-existing. So, yeah, it's a better word to use. Let's make sure it's right. It's called existential
Okay.
questions. Let me just look that up, make sure I'm not making a mistake. If you use this word, everyone in your class will go, look at you like, how did you learn that word?
Existential.
Yeah, it means
Asking
concerned with existence.
Yeah.
That's what you meant,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I meant.
Not self-existent,
Yeah.
but existential. Especially human existence as viewed in the theories of existentialism. So existential means it concerns your existence, right?
So,
If you use this word, that's like $1 million word, Arush. You should learn this word. Existential. E-X-I-S-T-E-N-T-I-A-L. Okay, so Sheshta, you can spell it again, slowly.
E-X-I-S-T-E-N-T-I-A-L.
Right. You want to learn this word, Amrita? Did you say or did you say om? What? Om, okay. Don't say that word, it's a horrible word. Say om. You know what om means? It means, yes, Krishna, I'll do what you want me to do. Okay, so you always want to say, yes, Krishna, om. Okay, good. I don't have that last paragraph. You didn't send that to me.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I'll send it to you. So, only in the human form do the living entities have such intelligence that they are able to alter their destiny by asking existential questions. Other species and dogs cannot do such a thing. They can only eat, sleep, mate, and defend. Here are the examples of fate and destiny. So fate, you are given the body of a dog in your next life. You cannot change the fact that you are a dog. Destiny, however, you can change your destiny by asking intelligent questions about self-realization and the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay. Well, in the case of the dog, it's right. You can't change your destiny. I mean, you can't change your fate. Fate is determined by your previous karma. However, and this is the one amazing thing about Krishna consciousness, it is possible through Krishna consciousness to alter or change your fate. Let's say you're born blind. That's your fate. That's based on your previous karma. You can't change it, right? But you can overcome that handicap. Let's put it like that. It's not that you change it, but you overcome the handicap by becoming Krishna conscious. So there are examples of this. One was, this is a little bit of a mundane example, but it's good to know about it. There was a woman named Helen Keller, K-E-L-L-E-R. She's a very interesting person. She's not a pure devotee, but she was a Christian. Let me just make sure I'm right here. Yes, she wrote books. She was a famous author.
Prabhu.
Yeah.
She wasn't able to see again, but she was able to work with
She was deaf and blind.
Yeah.
Deaf, and that means she couldn't hear and she couldn't see. Yeah.
But how did she alter her? Sorry. How did she alter her fate? Because she didn't.
No, she didn't alter the fate, but she was not defined by her fate. Let's say it didn't hold her back from being a high achiever in life. So she's an example of a person who didn't let her fate determine who she was. She was able to become a famous author. Many people were reading her books. And she was an American author, political activist, and lecturer. She was the first deaf, blind person to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. She went to college. Even though she was deaf deaf means she couldn't hear, and blind, she couldn't see. Just imagine if you were born blind and deaf. How would you feel? You would feel really like, you were cursed, you'd feel really disadvantaged, right? But she didn't let that defeat her. So you can't change your fate when it's severe like that, right? But you can not let it hold you back from achieving Krishna consciousness. So she was not pure Krishna conscious, but she was a Christian lady. And most of her books were religious books that she wrote. Or it had religious themes. Okay. Go ahead, finish. It's done. Okay. So, yeah, now the definitions that you're using are from the dictionary, is that right? Yeah. See now, they don't exactly apply to Krishna consciousness. And you have to be careful when answering these questions, not only to use the dictionary definitions. Although the dictionary definitions define those words in the English language, but you have to also put in the Krishna conscious point of view. Now, Helen Keller's an example. She's deaf and she's blind, but yet she went to college and got a bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Arts degree. Imagine how hard it would be to do that, right? You're blind and you're deaf. How do you learn your lessons? She can't hear the teacher. She can't see the teacher. She can't read a book like you can read a book. She can't take notes in the class, but yet she was able to get a bachelor's degree and then write books and lecture. She was a lecturer. How can she lecture? Well, she can speak, but she can't hear, and she can't see. You see. So she was a remarkable woman in that sense. Right? Because why? She didn't feel sorry for herself. She used whatever faculty she had. She had the faculty of, her mind was working. And so if you're deaf and blind, how do you learn? You tell me. What idea do you have? Okay, sense of touch. What?
Like touch.
Okay, but how do you learn through the sense of touch? Is that an answer?
I read a story where Helen Keller got like this tutor who tried to teach her words. Like she would, like to teach her water, like the word water. She would put her hand under water and then spell the word water out on her hand.
But how did she learn the alphabet? And you see, it's very tricky. In order to spell it out, she'd have to know the alphabet. How did she learn it? Okay, that's your homework also. Find out how she learned to learn the alphabet and then learn words. See how lucky you are. You have eyes, you have ears, right? Imagine if you couldn't see and you couldn't hear. How would you learn all this stuff? That's why this is called counting your blessings. Madhava, what do you think that means? Counting your blessings. Yeah, what does that mean? As opposed to counting your miseries. Can you count some of your blessings? What's one blessing you have? What? Your Krishna consciousness, okay? Any other blessings you have? Let's give him the microphone, let me say it out loud. How do you want to? Yes?
I
Jack?
have all the senses.
Sure, yeah. But we have to solve the water problem and the light in the big one.
And
That's more important. I mean, you can let the cows out, let them go graze. not even the wrong person. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. And I'll be there in about an hour and a half. Okay. So there's the heating the water and there's light in the corner. Okay, kind of. Sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear you.
I have all the senses.
What's that?
I have all those 5 senses.
Yes, that's a blessing.
And I have parents.
Ah, yes. Good parents, right?
And
Everybody has parents, but some are good and some might be bad. But you have good parents, so that's a big blessing. Good. You want to count your miseries? Okay. All right. So then you have to figure out how she learned to read, how she learned the alphabet, how did she learn to read, how did she learn to write, how did she know what's water, what's air, what's fire, how did she learn all these things? Right? What? Oh? Well, that's your homework. You have to figure it out. It's not that easy. Put your hand on it. Put your hand on the rug and figure it out. It's not that easy. You have to, but you see how clever people are and kind of them to take time to teach someone who's blind and deaf how to read and understand concepts. I mean, you have your eyes, you have your ears, you have everything. And we're talking about concepts and you're having a hard time learning. Imagine if you're deaf and blind. So she was a remarkable person in that sense. Now she didn't change her fate, but she didn't let her fate hold her back from evolving in this life. Now destiny fate is determined by your previous karma. Destiny is determined by what you're going to do in this life. Destiny means what's going to happen to you in the future based on what you're doing now in this life. Okay? Just like previously you had certain karma and it determined your next life and your fate. And you can't really change it, but by Krishna consciousness you can not let it hold you back from becoming Krishna conscious. Right? Destiny depends on what you're going to do now, the decisions that you make. So if you don't make the right decisions, you can have a horrible destiny by the end of your life. And that'll become your fate in the next life. Destiny is what's going to happen to you in this lifetime based on what you do. Like let's say you're so lucky that your friends at school convince you to smoke marijuana. Are you lucky? No, because that's going to be a very bad destiny. You're going to be stupid, make a lot of mistakes. But if you become Krishna conscious at a young age, you can avoid all those mistakes and become very happy and peaceful and go forward to your real destiny, that's to become a pure devotee, like Harivilas Maharaj, or Dhruva Maharaj, or so many great personalities, because they didn't waste their youth on nonsense. Now we're going to go to a very controversial subject based on the wrong definition of neutrality. I'm going to read an article here. This is in the news. And it's based on neutrality. They teach neutrality in schools nowadays. Okay? But it's the wrong concept of neutrality, and it creates a lot of problems in society. See, here's the same word that we studied. We studied neutrality, right? Neutrality means you're not disturbed by the dualities in life, right? Now, They're teaching neutrality in a school in England, and there's huge protests against it. And they do the same thing here in the United States. You will encounter this in school. Now, let me read. Protests have now been rumbling for weeks outside a primary school over a gay teacher running LGBTQ equality lessons. I'm sorry, this is not neutrality, it's equality. Equality means you see the relationship of a person to Krishna as the part and parcel of the Lord. Krishna is in the heart as Paramatma, and it can be a person or an animal or a plant. Everything living has an eternal relationship with Krishna. That's seeing equality. That's the understanding of equality. So there's a gay or a teacher or a homosexual teacher teaching equality lessons in the school. Angry parents who have been protesting since the end of last month claim that they have not consented to their children receiving the lessons as part of the No Outsiders project run by Andrew Moffat. Andrew Moffat, that's his name. The assistant head teacher at Parkfield Community School in the predominantly Muslim Alum Rock area of Birmingham. That's a neighborhood in Birmingham, England. Who was awarded an MBE. It's basically a master's degree. It's an advanced degree after you get your Bachelor of Arts degree, for his efforts to educate children about equality. Oh no, maybe MBE is some kind of award. I'm not sure, because this is England. Hundreds of parents have gathered outside Parkfield Community School, and they've been waving placards. P-L-A-C-A-R-D-S. Placard is a sign that you make, right? And with emotive means very emotional messages, including exploiting children's innocence and education, not indoctrination. You know the differences between education and indoctrination? What? Well, it has a connotation. Indoctrination means you're forcing kids to learn something that their parents have not agreed to be taught to their kids. They're being indoctrinated in a certain type of, in a certain field. Like in this case, it's this so-called no outsiders. That means that whatever a child decides to be their lifestyle, you cannot criticize it. You're not allowed to criticize it. Let's say someone decides to smoke marijuana. According to this principle, you're not allowed to criticize them. Or let's say a little boy decides to become a girl. You're not allowed to criticize them. That's what it means by no outsiders. Right? Okay. So, the mothers and fathers of the children that go to this, it's basically an elementary school, Parkfield Community School, have been waving placards. They've made up signs with very emotional messages, including exploiting children's innocence and education, not indoctrination. Concerned parent Fatima Shah, she's a Muslim. Right? Most of the people protesting were Muslims, but there were some Christians also that joined them. Says she has taken her 10-year-old daughter out of the school because of the lessons of Mr. Andrew Moffat. She told Birmingham Live, that's some radio station or television station, it's inappropriate, totally wrong. Children are being told it's okay to be gay, yet 98% of the children at this school are Muslim. It's a Muslim community. However, there's a person who is a Muslim and a comedian, and he went on Twitter and he wrote, "There are LGBT Muslim people suffering because of this attitude of prejudice, Muslim prejudice against so-called gay people." While many of the 300 parents protesting outside the academy school are Muslim, a group of Christian evangelists joined them on Wednesday. Pupils have 5 No Outsiders lessons a year covering all areas of Equality Act, which protects people in the UK from discrimination. Areas in the Act include race, religion or belief, sex and orientation, pregnancy or maternity, age, marriage and civil partnership, disability and gender reassignment. Books being read by pupils at the school include Mommy, Mama and Me and King, Mr. Fox. Anyway, okay, so the idea here is they're teaching what's called equality. How does this equality spoken of by Mr. Moffat differ than the definition of equality that we studied? Anybody want to venture and answer? Yes, Justin. So now look, this is a controversial subject, right? Why am I reading it? Because this is happening in elementary school in England, and it's happening in elementary school in the United States also. Of course, they have to choose, the elementary schools have to choose to do it. But in England, they passed a national law mandating that all young kids learn this. I don't know if that's happened in the United States yet, but there are many schools that do teach like this. Go ahead.
So basically, equality in their concept is at the bodily level. So they're trying to talk about materially everybody should be, like body-wise, everybody should be equal.
Yeah, whatever they decide to do, it's okay.
It's okay, basically.
Yeah.
But in Krishna consciousness, equality means not like the material body, but like the soul and the soul's connection to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. So you see, the same word that we're studying, they have a different meaning of it. And based on that different meaning, they're trying to force kids to accept that meaning. That's completely different than the real understanding of equality as far as Krishna consciousness goes. So it says, angry parents argue that they have not consented to diversity lessons. Despite coming under fire, Mr. Moffat, who says he has felt threatened after receiving nasty messages, has no plans to stop his work. He told the radio station, British Broadcasting Company, "What keeps me going is the support from the school, which is absolutely brilliant, and the city council and the government. There are lots of people recognizing that this work is important and that what you have to hold on to." Mr. Moffat says he has kept going by the support of the school. Okay, so you see, you're going to encounter situations like this all the time now, because there's what's called a shift of culture. Write that down. Shift, S-H-I-F-T, of culture. Shift of culture. So what does that mean, a shift of culture? Sanskrit. What is culture?
Culture is the way people behave, act, think.
How they do things.
Yeah.
Like how you eat, how you sleep, how you see, how you talk, how you relate to other people. All that is culture, right? How you do things, right? So, what does it mean, a shift of culture? Like, for example, previously, people thought a family is a husband and a wife and children. But due to the shift of culture today, they're starting to teach, like Mr. Moffat in England, in Parkland School, community school, that a family is not just a husband and wife. It could be two mommies or two daddies, right? So that's a change of culture, where there was previously there was no question that family means there's a husband and a wife and their children. Now they're saying, no, you can have families with two mommies or two daddies. So, you see, this is a major shift. So the Muslims are protesting and the Christians are protesting. So what is the answer to all this? By the way, someone could say that the lessons that I'm giving to you is indoctrination. Right? So, indoctrination means you're teaching a doctrine. A doctrine is what? It's a way of seeing the world. Right? Let's look that word up, make sure I'm not making a mistake.
How do you spell it?
Huh?
How do you
Doctrine. Write it down. Augusta, you know what doctrine means? Is that your answer? You don't know. Oh no, first time he doesn't know meaning. Okay, so you're going to write it down so you learn it? Doctrine. Yes, what does it mean? Say it in the microphone. Behind.
A belief or set of beliefs held and taught by a church, political party, or other group.
Yeah, it's the way you see the world or your beliefs, right? So indoctrination means you're trying to force people to believe things in a certain way. Now the question here, and this is a question you have to answer, is learning Krishna consciousness indoctrination? Yeah, you're allowed to have an opinion, right? But if you base your opinion on Shastra, that's the best. So if you can give some Shastric evidence to support your opinion, one way or the other, is learning Krishna consciousness indoctrination or is it education? Yeah, that's the last homework for tomorrow. Indoctrination, indoctrination, indoctrination. Is it education or is it indoctrination, learning Krishna consciousness like in this class? And so here's people, 300 people that are really angry. They have placards and signs and saying, education, not indoctrination. Huh? What? All the homework or just this one homework? Explain the difference. Explain what you think this class is. Is it indoctrination or is it education? They rhyme, indoctrination. You can have a rap song like this. Is it indoctrination or is it education? Okay, the first homework. No, that's the second homework. First homework is reading 12th chapter, verses 12 to 13. And explain what it means by better to suffer than to protest. Does that mean if someone in school calls you a Hare Krishna nonsense, you should say nothing or you should say something? Well, yeah, if someone's mistreating you, or if someone abuses you in some way, you should immediately report it. You're not being a crybaby or a snitch. You have a right, you have a right to go to school and not be harassed, and not be bullied, right? Or not be hit. Right? Yes? Yes. Well, no. Third question, you have to answer with Shastric evidence, one way or the other. Okay? If you think it's indoctrination, you have to give the Shastra. If you think it's education, you have to give the Shastra. Yes? Education, yes, all the time. Indoctrination, he talks about it. He talks about it. Okay, we'll stop there. All right? It's already 9:45. Try and come on time tomorrow, and I'll be here on time tomorrow. Because we didn't start till like 8:20. Right? So it's tough to go over all these things. And plus I'm giving you, well, let's see, what do you think about this homework? Do you think it's important or not? Okay, Haribol. You don't have to look up this article or anything. You got the idea. The problem is education or indoctrination. You can turn in your homework to me if you have it printed out, or if you want to send it by email. And I'll read